Welcome back to the Crown Chronicles, where we talk about being our most authentic, soulfully, wholefully aligned self. We have conversations just about like, what is spirituality? What is this life that we're living? How do I show up as my authentic self in the greatest way possible? Unapologetically, completely, and always aligned with, the divine within ourselves. As promised last week, I said we were going to talk more about the sacred feminine, the war on sacred femininity, and then just kind of making this a mini series as to like the rise in feminine energy in the world and what we're seeing that's almost like opposing it. When I say feminine energy, I don't just mean women. We all have feminine and masculine energy within us. When you go through individuation, which is bringing the shadow aspect of yourself online, it also means bringing into union your energies of sacred masculine and feminine. So before we go anywhere else, also another disclaimer, I do not believe in one's better than the other. Each one plays a role. Are we equal as far as the energies go? Absolutely, but they're just different like roles that we have with the energies. It has nothing to do with better or worse. This one deserves hatred and this is the reason for X, Y, and Z. Okay? Thank you. Okay. So I wanted to get into where the fuck did the war on women start? And I have my own hypotheses about it. There's some research also that a lot of people have done. And so we're going to just get into it and go from there. So first thing, even though, it kind of ties back into like 1928 when she actually published about it. So there's this term, it's called womb envy. And who coined it? It was Karen Horney in 1928. And she was opposing Sigmund Freud, who came up with penis envy. And to get both viewpoints of it and why she came up with that. So penis envy, according to Sigmund Freud, is that women were jealous of the power and the control that men had. And Karen was like, skew it. That's not a thing because that's a man-made concept. Like you guys created the systems, the structures, and the ideas of this like facade of control. So how can we be jealous of something that you created that was intentionally meant to make us the underdog? So like, what do you mean by that? So then she's like, this is actually what's going on. This is called womb envy. And where you see it originally is Abrahamic religion. Naturally, the woman has the womb. She has the womb, it's the uterus, and it's also the celestial, intergalactic, higher consciousness portal of just knowing. It's just higher consciousness. When someone is tapped in through their womb, that is their portal. And then the body is a temple, it's the vessel. The energy comes through and it just flows through naturally. That's us as creators, as women, as people with uteri, whatever. That is what our role is. It's the energetic creation of life. And then also the womb holds the creation of life. And so she was like, yeah, you're actually fucking lying because why do you think religion was made? And to go further into that, which 2 + 2 = 4, it all makes sense. Patriarchy through religion, the 3 Abrahamic religions, were created because it was like, well, if they are naturally the creators, even if it's energetically, but they can't prove it because energy is felt. It's not seen and it's not tangible until you get into the womb. Well, we need to create something to where now they need to be afraid of themselves and misunderstand themselves because they naturally carry creation. And then Abrahamic religions were created. And then there's just a lot of other shit that happened in between there. And so on top of the womb envy religion, patriarchal religions also, then we actually get into the Salem witch trials, which also were not just Americans. It was in 1692 when it was brought over from England, but this shit was happening all the time. Like it was already happening around the world. And what it was, they said witch trials because once again, we have to create a fear around something if we want to be able to control it. And we'll get a little bit more into that after this. And so what the witch trials actually were when they came to the US was women weren't allowed to own land unless it was given to them, typically by either family or by a husband that had like been deceased or something. So situation one, husband, wife, they're married, husband dies, husband leaves everything to wife. Wife now owns the land. She owns the property, she owns the land, and now everything belongs to her. And those are her assets. And in order to prevent that, people were like, well, if she owns that land and if she did anything wrong or we want to take that land, you can accuse her of witchcraft, which is insane because then they were creating these like trials, witch trial, of like, oh, if we bind her hands and we bind her feet and we throw her in the ocean or into the lake, and if she survives and she's a witch, so then we get to burn her. But if she's a human and she drowns, well, fuck it. She can't claim that property any fucking way. And that was one basis of it. So it was the land and it was the property, but also there's this, it was the publication of the King James Bible. And in that, King James in England like came out with that Bible rendition of things, and it was talking about like property, women, and all the other fun things. But that came from a previous book this man wrote called Demoniz. I need to look that up. I am 100% telling y'all stuff, and I should actually fact check. So I'll include that in the notes. And so that was just a transference of like, okay, so King James in England wrote this one book, and then it was already demonizing like women as human beings and like dancing with the devil or communing with the devil. And so, which was crazy. So then he created the King James Bible that came to the US. The Salem witch trials on that aspect started happening because now, well, if she's a witch, then we can claim her property. So now there's the property part. However, also on the more spiritual and witchcraft side is you had conjurers, you had root workers, you had women that were practicing herbalism, and then you had like the indigenous women, because once again, what happened in America, they colonized everything and they took everything from the natives that were already here. What typically was embedded in the culture of Native Americans, not even typically, 100% was plant medicine. It was prayer. It was praying and honoring the divinity and the godliness within yourself. And so at that point, now you are a witch, because what do you mean? You're curing things. You don't need a male doctor to tell you what to do, because now you're putting plants together and you're putting like these quote unquote spells together. Spells, all they are is just, it's sounds coming out of your mouth. It's not even words. It can be a sound. It can be a clicking. It can be like humming was a huge one. Also, humming regulates your nervous system. And so we were naturally healing ourselves. And then people were like, oh, and you're not going to a doctor? And like you're doing it by yourself? And a man isn't telling you how to do it? Well, now you have to be a witch. And now you are the devil. And now you have to be feared. Okay. So then what did this turn into? This turned into the witch wound. And what is the witch wound, Ashley? It is a societally embedded into the fascia of the women that are doing the conscious work, they're doing the shadow work, they're doing all of the spiritual awakenings to come back home to their true selves. But it's deeply embedded, not even in the DNA. I say it's the fascia because it's a societal imprint of the witch wound. And this is how absolutely terrifying it is. Let's say, I'll give a few examples. Let's say, first example we had earlier, husband one dies, woman owns property, and now simply just for existing, and she now owns this property and this land, we're going to say that she's a witch, put her on trial for this. Okay, well, she goes to trial, and this is where shit started going terribly. She goes to trial, and she's like, well, I'm not a witch. Okay. Well, then prove to me you're not a witch. Either they do the like throwing the leg thing or whatever one of those other weird shits are, or she says, I'm not a witch, but I saw woman X over here doing this. And simply for having your fucking name known, you were now put on trial also. And you wouldn't not be killed. It would delay the murder of you. So now you're not dying alone. You have now just brought someone else with you. So it just kind of like offset and delayed your death essentially. And then became the witch wound had then turned into also the fear of being seen. And so now we have a society to where women don't want to be seen or known, because if you even know my name, if you have any association with me, I can die. And so let's say, I don't know, a married man comes on to you and you're just like, absolutely the hell not. And you say no to him. Well, now you're a witch. And now because you don't have autonomy over your own body and you genuinely just don't want to do this shit and you say no and you piss someone off, now also comes in the just like deplorable, well, now I have to do what a man tells me to do because that could cost me my life. That could cost me my livelihood and everything that I know or that I love. And so these are deeply embedded structures that when women are waking up, they don't understand. I'm not going to say they as in like hyperbolic and everybody that's experiencing this. However, a large portion of people that are going back to like native roots and they don't understand why they don't want to be seen, or they don't want to be, right now, social media is the hugest thing. They don't want to be known. They don't want their name just out there or anything. And they're like, I don't understand why. Like, I've never been afraid of this. But then something comes up. It's a societal, deeply embedded witch wound that is within the sacred feminine. And so why is this pertinent? Why is this happening? Well, I mentioned it earlier. What we're seeing now in society is that women are reclaiming their power. And these are the women that are like, there's no hatred towards either side. It's just, I know my purpose in this lifetime is to balance the scales. We were talking about the scales last week. So hypermasculine, wounded masculine patriarchy is running a fucking muck right now. And to balance those scales, because women are the energetic leaders, the women now have to heal because they're like, one, I'm fucking tired of this shit. You're making my life miserable and I can't fucking live here. It's crazy. And then two, once the woman, the feminine energy, has started that healing process, the masculine automatically follows and starts healing the physical realm. I hope that makes sense. So scales are like this. Patriarchy is doing this dumb shit, crazy shit, and it's all wounded. And the sacred feminine is like, yeah, fuck that. I don't know what the fuck y'all are doing, but I don't want to live in this shit anymore. And I'm not going to complain about it. So let's just energetically, we're going to balance these scales. Women lead in energy, men lead in the physical. But the physical has to follow the energy, because where attention goes, energy flows. And so we're just all just doing the whole leadership shit, but as cohesion in union, synchronous energy. There we go. So why does this matter? Because the world right now, you see the breakout in the wars. I've seen an uptick of attacks on women, physically, mentally. There is a lot of, I've had to mute a few accounts, and honestly, I've been taking steps back from social media because the absolute audaciousness of hypermasculinity, not just in men, but the upholding of the patriarchy in women also, is encouraging violence, whether it be like spiritual violence, sexual violence, physical violence against feminine energy. When Roe v. Wade was overturned, it wasn't just the woman's womb who now could not make a decision for herself. That was an issue on medical rights, which the medical industry, the religious industry, and the pharmaceutical industry in the US are full-blown patriarchal systems, and its consumption. So There's that. So it all just ties in. And what happens though energetically is you will see, okay, world consciousness. We're making a decision that we want to balance the scales of what the fuck that's happening in the world. Okay, bet. So when an old system is dying, aka the wounded masculine patriarchal energy, it always throws a temper tantrum first. So the uptick in everything that we're seeing is absolutely expected. It's unfucking fortunate. I'm not giving it an excuse. It's just I understand the way that energy works, and it fucking sucks. It is like society and the community and all of the world is going through a mass ego death. And even on a personal level, anyone that's ever gone through any tower moments or ego deaths, you know fuck well when you make a decision that's better for yourself, that part of the ego kicks it up a notch before you finally say, yeah, fuck that, I'm going to still continue. And that's exactly what we're seeing in society. So then also though, what we are seeing, and this is just kind of a little bit of like backstory, disclaimer, it is not just with feminine energy. I will say this and you can apply it however you need to. Whenever there is a person or a group of people that have an inherent natural talent or aids society in a beautiful way, and they are the game changers of everything, they will automatically have systems set up against them. Use that how you want to. All right. So now going back into the masculine, feminine. When the patriarchy and we saw the Salem witch trials and we saw everything, even religion. Let's just go with religion just because that's the easiest example. When you don't understand something and you know that they are obviously like, oh, fuck, they know what they're doing, or like this is something like we have to be able to control it because I don't have access to that gift that they are. Well, now I have to create fear and hatred around it. And so with that, you see sacred feminine energy in the animal kingdom. It's cats and snakes. Snakes are the embodiment of the sacred feminine. It is creation, but it's also going through the cycles of rebirth. It just is. The snake sheds its skin, comes out of the egg. It slithers, and that's flow, that is dancing. Also, women, when they're connecting with the sacred feminine or the divine mother or Mama Gaia, it's typically should always be through somatic movement. Trauma and hurt is stored in the hips. And so to release it, you're shaking or you're whining your hips, and it's getting that energy out. And that's exactly what a snake does. With cats, it's simply the feline cat. The black cat was associated with Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th was demonized because it was a celebration, the day of the goddess, to celebrate the 13 moon cycles and the 13 menstrual cycles in women. Also, because again, women were taught to fear their own power because we were called crazy. We were crazy, or you're imagining things, or like you're just making it up. And it's because consciousness isn't something that you can always touch. It's something you feel and you just know. All 7 of your clairs, whether it's claircognizance, clairsentience, clairgustance, all of them, those are your psychic gifts. When someone's like, well, I just know, that's claircognizance. Well, prove it to me. That is a hyper masculine form of living. Well, prove it to me. Show me your proof. And I don't mean like if a doctor's trying to operate on you, obviously, yes, you want them to have a degree. Yes, we know this. However, when it comes to consciousness, that's just not something that's always going to happen. And something else to like link even more into it, in human design, projectors are the epitome of it. It's because the projectors and reflectors, it's because they're not the doers per se, but they have the wisdom and they have the zoomed out view of everything. But projectors specifically are meant to wait for the invitation because the knowledge is there. The knowledge is there. However, if it is disclosed or if it's said or brought to people too soon, people are going to shun it away because they're like, well, show me your proof. How do you know this? And it's like, I don't know how I know. I just know the things, and it's embedded in me, and it's just a truth, and it is an embodied truth. And so you live it. And when that invitation comes, aka when the rest of the world is ready for it, that's when the projector is invited. And it's damn near the same thing with the sacred feminine and wisdom. When people say like, it's that sixth sense or a woman's intuition, that's very real. However, to link it all back into what we talk about here with the authenticity, the world has created and given you masks or identities to wear. And so a lot of the time that comes with insecurity. So there's insecurity, intuition, and imagination. And it's your responsibility as the person to discern between all three of them. One trick that I have, and this has worked for me, what works for me will probably not work for anyone else. I don't know, but you can try it. It's just, we're just here, we're sharing. Intuition, she's a quick in, almost like an invitation. She's a quick in, and then she comes out, and she's soft. And it's just a gentle knowing. And it's almost like, okay, what are you going to do with this information? And I'm like, oh. But the reason why we doubt intuition, especially when it moves like that, is because it's a simplicity. The world has taught us to like, okay, well, it has to have like 17 steps to it, and it has to be like a loud banging. That's not what intuition is. Intuition, I'm here. What do you do with me? Are you going to act on it or not? Versus insecurity. Insecurity is rush. It is the dire, like you feel like I have to do this right away, right now. Oh my God. And it's almost like a panic that comes in with it. And it is right now or never. And that's just insecurity. And then imagination is almost like that rumination, to where it's like, it comes straight from the mind. That's another thing. Intuition, a lot of the time I feel it in my entire body. It lands in my chest and then it dissipates out. Imagination, straight up in the mind. It's not even the crown chakra. She's just straight up in the mind, and I'll start like getting a headache, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's not a real fucking thing. And then insecurity is when it's guttural for me. So I feel it in my stomach because that's where anxiety lives. And so that's how I am able to discern through all three of those. But when women's intuition is online, you know that you're connected to your soul self. You know that you're the embodiment of your truest, highest, most aligned self. She just comes in and out. And then sometimes you can just ask yourself like, okay, so what am I meant to do with this information? Am I meant to do or speak or say or share or like create or do art from it? What am I meant to do with this? And what we're seeing now is the energetic leading through intuition. And it's a beautiful change in society that's happening. Unfortunately, though, it's like a bow and arrow. You're going to feel that bow pull back before that let go, and the arrow can take trajectory of where it needs to go. And so that's a little bit of the history on the war on feminism, or not feminism, but like on the sacred feminine. Mama Gaia, the earth, she's hurting. And so that's why we see all the weather or like the structural changes in the earth. We see the sacred feminine energy rising in both men and in women. And it manifests very differently in both. However, it's very valid in both, because it's the call for you to trust yourself on the spiritual journey and to shed all of the masks that the world has tried to give you, but also for you to embody the light and the truth that you are. Underneath all of these masks is simply your light. You are the sun embodied. And that's what the sacred feminine is asking for. It's asking for like, connect to yourself, learn how to flow, know your power without mistaking it for control or the illusion of control. It is connection without attachment. It is artistry, it's creativity, and it's really the freedom that comes with it while allowing the structure of the sacred masculine to come in when it needs to come in. It's not commanding, it's not demanding, it's not the damsel in distress like Disney likes to portray. It's none of that. But it's the remembering who you are in your soul. And it's the invitation for your wholeness to be here. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them. I love connecting with everybody. And next week, we'll just continue this discussion.